Hey there guys, welcome back to another Realm of the Mad God video, and today I have with me the UT armors that need buffs, part of the series of videos where I talk about items that could use some touching up since, they've seen better days. Last episode we talked about the untiered abilities, and in this episode we're going over armors. Got 6 with me this time. I actually had half a mind to bring in Resurrected Warrior's armor, but to be honest, I think it's fine where it is. So spoiler alert, Rezu is not on this list. I wouldn't want it to be. I know a lot of people kind of want that armor to be buffed, but knights are too overpowered as it is, so no thank you. As per usual, I'm avoiding armors that are meant to be gimmicky or troll, so obviously not counting the cheater armors or like the fungal breastplate, since those are purely meant for being meme armors. So if you guys enjoyed this video and want to see the Rings one come out soon, then I'd appreciate it if you left a like on this video, and be sure to subscribe to catch more Realm content, but let's get into the list. First item on the list is Esben Shaman Attire. I mean, it's not that bad. It trades off some defense that ditches all the wisdom and MP from a standard tiered robe in favor of giving a little bit of HP and, more importantly, a 10% chance to slow enemies around you whenever you take damage. Already, stats on this robe below average, right? So if you want to give players an incentive to use it, it needs to have some form of compensation in some other way. For example, Mercy's Bane, it's the heavy armor, you lose 16 defense, but gives you like a staggering 8 attack and 7 dex, I think. I don't remember off the top of my head. Or Heated Lieutenant, you lose 10 defense for I think 8 dex and attack. Those are both really solid trade-offs in defense for that huge DPS boost you're getting, right? Having a 10% chance, which is a very low chance I might add, to slow enemies is pretty abysmal. Here's the issue with that. Robe classes are all ranged, and almost 90% of weapons used by robe classes far exceed 6 tiles, including Bard, because remember, Bard can increase attack range, so even short-range bows like Void Bow, they go way beyond that. So unless you're rushing on a robe class or spacing improperly, you're never going to be that close to enemies for the slow to even take place. On top of that, robe classes are really squishy, so you wouldn't want to be taking too many hits in the first place, reducing the practicality of this robe even more. One more thing, the very skull from this set that this robe is attached to slows enemies. So the slowing component on this robe is completely redundant if you're playing on a necromancer because you're slowing enemies to begin with, and then you have sorcerers with the Scepter of Fulmination. So there's no practical benefit to using this robe over just a plain G-Sork or Star Mother. In fact, Shaman Attire would make a hell of a lot more sense on a melee class whose job is to tank a lot of hits for the team. This item would be fantastic on Warrior, Samurai, Paladin, and Knight because there's a lot of instances where you want to slow down enemies to make it easier to land your shots given swords have pretty low range and a small hitbox. So the proposed buff I have for this robe might sound kind of strange and maybe overpowered, but hear me out. Instead of making it slowing proc based on if it takes damage, change it to being a 10% slow on enemies from your own attacks. That'd be so much better, because then wizards, priests, mystics, and bards can have a passive slow added to their shots to help them kite enemies better and maintain crowd control. Since it's 10%, it won't be happening too frequently, but with how many shots you're firing on some of those classes, it could still happen often enough for you to want to use it. I think the trade-off in base stats are fine if we change the slowing component to be proactive instead of reactive, but I might just be underestimating how broken that'd be. I'm not sure actually. Next item, Leaf Dragon Hide Armor, which I'd argue is the worst white bag in the layer of Draconis. You lose 4 defense for 50 HP, which I think is still a net loss, and you gain 6 speed, 3 wisdom, and vitality. Okay, so leather armor classes have no Wismod, and vitality is a dead stat, so those two are basically 0, meaning the stats to consider are 13 defense, 50 HP, and 6 speed. I often compare Leaf Dragon to Behemoth armor, the latter being much easier to get and basically giving you the same bonuses, with Leaf Dragon beating it only by like 1 speed. Considering Leaf Hide is a white bag drop versus Behemoth being a cyan bag that drops pretty frequently, this needs a buff. What I don't understand is, why does it give 6 speed? Limos is known to be the tanky dragon that sits still a lot and uses a bunch of shields, so this would make a lot more sense as a tank armor similar to the Solus robe. The main issue with this armor is that its stats are underwhelming for being a white bag. I would actually argue it's weaker than even the Sea Silk and Spectral Cloth, which are also cyan bag drops. Some may argue that it's great for rushing classes, but since they already have really high mobility, there's very little reason for you to want to use this armor. Lair of Draconis is a pretty divisive dungeon. A lot of players dislike running it because of how long it takes, how infrequently you get loot, and while it's not a hard dungeon, it's certainly not one you can just turn your brain off in and autopilot because how many shots and things are flying towards you at once if you're not paying attention, you could die. With all that in mind, it isn't unreasonable to want the white bag drops to be very good. In fact, Water Dragon Silk Robe is one of the best DPS robes in the game, trading away wisdom and mana for attack and speed. The Celestial Blade is an amazing katana, and the Midnight Star has good utility, but Leaf Hide is just so underwhelming. My suggestion for this item is to just fully embrace the tank theme and make it like 17 defense and 80 HP, similar to Soulless Robe. Apart from Armor of Nil, there's no good defensive light armor, so I can't think of a better one than Leaf Dragon Hide. There's already a ton of armors that give high speed, so if you turn this into a tank item, you're not losing that much in terms of equipment variety, in fact you're gaining more. I bet you guys were waiting for me to say this one. This robe is probably the most pointless white bag drop in the entire game. Robe of the Mad Scientist. Basically a worse G-Sork. In fact, the only thing keeping this from being irredeemable is that it gives 5% fame bonus, which is, if you're farming fame, it does come in handy. The exact same stats as a G-Sork though, but you lose 1 wisdom for 2 vitality. Vitality is useless, don't at me. The CurryBox12 already made a video on Robe of the Mad Scientist, and I wholeheartedly agree with the fact that this robe has zero business being a white bag drop. Yes, there are UT versions of other items that are roughly comparable to each other. For example, Coral Silk Armor is almost a 1-to-1 with Hydra Skin, but in its defense, Sea Silk is a Cyan bag drop. Other than this robe, every other equipment Mad Scientist set pretty solid, so we need to definitely overhaul this robe because my god, it's terrible. From what I'm getting at, it sacrifices emphasis on the scepter for damage and converts it towards the wand, effectively making it a set that eliminates your need for wisdom because Scepter of Fulmination has a high base enemy count already, and you're not using Fulmi for damage, so you don't need to worry about Wismod. Conducting Wand, good DPS on its own, and Expo Ring gives you mostly defensive stats. Okay, so while I agree the Mad Lab robe sucks, I actually have a different proposal for the Mad Lab robe than Talwar. Let's make this robe the DPS robe. As in, let's make this the robe counterpart of the Hirocho Tene or Mercy's Bane. Remove its wisdom, vitality, and MP bonus, and reduce the defense down to like 8 or 7, but turn its 4 attack into 6 and give it 7 dexterity. I know we have the Anointed robe, but in all honesty, you don't really sacrifice anything besides a little bit of wisdom and vitality. Other than that, Anointed robe is just a better G-Sork. In fact, I wish the Mad Lab robe had the stats Anointed does, but since that genie's already out of the bottle, we'll go on full DPS, for the Mad Lab robe. That would fully embrace the abandonment of wisdom on that set and give everyone a huge incentive to want to go for Mad Labs because you can get some pretty killer white bags. Next on the list, Fire Dragon Battle Armor. Half of the Laud Whites are really good and the other half are kinda crap. Fire Dragon Battle Armor to me is just really underwhelming. You lose 7 to 9 defense to gain 4 attack. Not that bad. 3 speed and 3 vitality though. Once again, vitality, useless. The 4 attack and 3 speed are worth looking into, but Fire Drake armor has a hard time standing out compared to most of its peers. The tiered armors all focus on giving a lot of defense to help out melee classes since they have to put themselves in greater danger to get the damage in. And so the UT and ST armors give you a different spin on that. We have HP armors being Fairy Plate and Breastplate of New Life, and then we have Resurrected Warrior armor for mana, Zarvox's Heart for speed, Mercy's Bane for DPS. There's no real niche that the Fire Dragon stands out in, so let's give it one. We know the boss that drops this armor is focused on armor breaking and dealing true damage, so instead of base stats boosting Fire Drake armor, let's try this instead. Remove the vitality, speed, and attack bonus and just keep it reduced to 17 defense. In exchange, add a passive component to where you can have a 25% chance per shot for that shot to deal true damage. That could make the Fire Dragon Battle Armor a viable swap out when going against enemies that have really high base defense and no one's around to armor break with a Crystal Fang Venom or a Shield of Ogmer. 25% chance means a quarter of your shots will be doing their full damage. It's a pretty solid DPS boost if you ask me. I believe it is still less than Mercy's Bane, but you don't lose as much defense. So if you're uncomfortable with how much you're losing from Mercy's Bane, then you can opt for this armor instead. I like how the armors within Laud are themed after their dragon's elements, so why not reflect that in their stats and properties for the sake of continuity? The 3 speed doesn't make sense since this isn't meant to be a rushing armor, so let's give it a nice oomph and damage. Number 5. Candy Coated Armor. CC, it's an extremely innovative armor. I like it a lot design wise. It's an armor made of hard candy. That's awesome. But its stats have never been that desirable. A whopping 30 defense, highest of any armor in the game by far, but you lose 10 dexterity. Okay, losing 2 to 3 dex, that's fine. You can definitely manage. 10 is when it really starts to be noticeable. All that for only 4 extra defense compared to Dominion armor. You need to do better than that. Candyland Hunting Grounds is already hard to find as it is unless you access it via opening a key, so therefore the drops should be rewarding. Some of them are really good, like Pixie Enchanted Sword and Fairy Plate, but Candy Coated and Candy Ring, they both really suck. I think 30 defense is fine, but let's ease up on that minus 10 dex and make it like minus 4 dex. It's still a trade-off in terms of your attack speed, but it's no longer a crippling amount. I definitely argue there are situations where I would gladly trade 4 dex in exchange for 4 defense. For example, if you're in Fungal Cavern or Crystal Cavern, and survivability is more important because you're taking a lot of damage from shots that you can't really dodge. I would still go for Breastplate of New Life or Fairy Plate over Candy Coated, but at least now it's not unusable, you know? Last armor on this list, Armor of Nil. I know they recently buffed her from 21 defense, minus 2 speed to 24 defense and minus 4 speed, but I think that's not really good enough, especially since this is coming from the Void entity, which is like the hardest boss in the game. If we were to follow through on the Leaf Dragon hide armor changes, that would make it practically infinitely better than the current Armor of Nil. So we do need to spruce this up a little bit. I feel like Armor of Nil should still be a defensive item, but it shares the same problem as Candy Coated where the loss of stats is too great for the added defense. Wormhide armor gives you 19 defense and 6 dexterity, so not only are you losing 4 speed, but you're also losing 6 dex in exchange for 5 extra defense. That's a really bad blow to the bow classes who desperately need that extra boost in dex. And even on classes that could benefit from Nil, like the dagger classes and ninja, I don't think it's that worth using Nil over a Wormhide if you're concerned about survivability. 5 defense is a pretty negligible number, especially in the endgame. See, with a Candy Coated armor, it makes sense reducing dexterity since it's really sticky, but for Nil, I think the speed loss is appropriate, so my proposal for this armor, buff the defense to 26. It makes it the same stat bonus as a Dominion armor. 2 more defense would then open it up for serious consideration since you're getting 7 bonus defense in exchange for minus 4 speed, or 9 defense if you're comparing it to Hydra Skin. A lot of the light armors do give a hefty boost in speed, as their name implies, they're light armors. A heavy light armor is still a pretty cool concept as well, and so I want to keep it. Right now, 24 defense is okay. I'm not saying it's bad, but I think 26 defense will finally push it to the level of I might prefer to use this over Wormhide. Whew, okay, that's it for this video. I was not expecting to talk this much about armors since unlike weapons and abilities, the only thing armors really give are stats, but oh well. I do like going in depth and detail. Let me know what you guys think though about my choices, if you agree or disagree with them, or if you think there are other armors that need reworks as well. I think Deca should start pushing towards making armors be more than just stats, because there's only so many combinations you can make before every armor just becomes a carbon copy of each other. For instance, the Fire Dragon battle armor change, that'd be pretty sweet, I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of equipment that need buffs. If you are looking forward to more videos like these, hope you can show your support by leaving a like and subscribing so you can stay tuned for them in the future, as well as more Realm content. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon in the next video. Take care.